The morning mist hung low over Buckingham Palace as Senior Royal Guard James Mitchell began his routine patrol. After 15 years of faithful service, he knew every corner, every shadow, and every secret passage within the grand walls. His polished boots echoed against the marble floors as he walked through the corridors that had witnessed centuries of royal history. James had always prided himself on his unwavering loyalty to the crown. He had protected members of the royal family through countless public appearances, state dinners, and private moments. His dedication was absolute, his record spotless. The other guards respected him, the staff trusted him, and the royals themselves had come to rely on his steady presence. On this particular Tuesday morning, however, something felt different. There was an unusual tension in the air, whispers among the household staff that stopped abruptly when he approached. The Queen Consort, Camilla, had been acting strangely for weeks, dismissing her usual attendance and insisting on privacy in ways that raised eyebrows among the palace staff. As James made his way through the residential wing, he noticed that Camilla's personal quarters were unusually quiet. Her lady-in-waiting, Mrs. Eleanor Hartwell, who had served the royal family for over 2 decades, stood outside the chambers with a worried expression etched across her weathered face. When she spotted James, she hurried toward him with urgent steps. "Mr. Mitchell," she whispered, glancing nervously around the empty corridor, "I need to speak with you privately. It's about Her Majesty. Something isn't right, and I fear we may have a serious situation on our hands." James frowned, his protective instincts immediately heightened. In all his years of service, he had never seen Eleanor look so distressed. She was known for her calm demeanor and ability to handle even the most challenging royal situations with grace and discretion. "What's troubling you, Mrs. Hartwell?" James asked, keeping his voice low and professional. Eleanor glanced around once more before continuing. "Her Majesty has been receiving strange packages delivered directly to her private chambers. She's been secretive about their contents, and she's dismissed all of us from attending to her wardrobe area for the past 3 weeks. Yesterday, I heard strange sounds coming from behind the wardrobe doors, mechanical noises like drilling or construction work." James felt a chill run down his spine. Any unusual activity in the royal quarters was cause for concern, but secretive behavior involving unknown packages and construction sounds raised immediate security red flags. His mind began racing through various scenarios, each more troubling than the last. "Has anyone else noticed these irregularities?" James inquired, his training taking over as he began to assess the potential security implications. "The cleaning staff mentioned that they've been barred from entering certain areas of her chambers," Eleanor replied. "And the palace maintenance team hasn't been called for any authorized work in her quarters. Whatever is happening, it's being done without official approval or oversight." The weight of responsibility settled heavily on James's shoulders. As a senior guard, he was tasked with ensuring the safety and security of all royal family members, even if it meant investigating activities they might prefer to keep private. The balance between respect for royal privacy and security concerns was always delicate, but when unauthorized modifications were being made to royal quarters, security had to take precedence. James made a decision that would change everything. "Mrs. Hartwell, I need you to document everything you've observed. Times, dates, descriptions of the packages, any details about the sounds you've heard. I'm going to conduct a security assessment of Her Majesty's quarters when she's at her afternoon engagement." Eleanor nodded, relief evident in her eyes. "Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. I've been losing sleep over this situation. Something tells me we're dealing with something far more serious than a simple redecoration project." As Eleanor hurried away to compile her observations, James felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that came with potential security threats. He had dealt with everything from suspicious individuals attempting to breach palace grounds to coordinating protection during high-risk public events. However, investigating potential security concerns involving a member of the royal family themselves was uncharted territory. The rest of the morning passed slowly as James went through the motions of his regular duties while mentally preparing for what he might discover. He reviewed the palace security protocols, considered the various access points to Camilla's quarters, and tried to anticipate what could possibly require such secrecy and unauthorized modifications. When lunchtime arrived, James learned that Camilla would be attending a charity event at a local hospital, an engagement that would keep her away from the palace for at least 3 hours. This would provide the perfect opportunity for a thorough but discreet security inspection of her quarters. As he prepared for what might be the most important investigation of his career, James couldn't shake the feeling that whatever he was about to discover would have far-reaching consequences for everyone involved. The palace had weathered many storms throughout its history, but something told him that this particular storm was just beginning to brew. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the ornate windows of Camillas' private chambers as James Mitchell approached the heavy oak doors. His heart pounded with a mixture of duty and apprehension. In his hand, he carried the master security key that granted him access to any area of the palace during emergency situations or security assessments. James paused outside the door, listening carefully for any sounds from within. The silence was absolute, confirming that Camilla had indeed departed for her charity engagement. He inserted the key and turned it slowly, the well-oiled mechanism responding without a sound. The door swung open to reveal the elegant sitting room that served as the entrance to the Queen Consort's private quarters. The familiar scent of lavender and roses filled the air, emanating from the fresh flower arrangements that were changed daily according to royal tradition. Everything appeared normal at first glance. The antique furniture was perfectly arranged, the Persian rugs lay straight and undisturbed, and the family photographs on the side tables were positioned exactly as they had always been. James moved carefully through the sitting room toward the bedroom area, his trained eyes scanning for anything unusual. The bedroom itself was immaculate, with the four-poster bed made to perfection and personal items arranged with military precision. However, as he approached the far end of the room where the large walk-in wardrobe was located, he began to notice subtle signs that something was amiss. The first indication was the floor around the wardrobe entrance. Despite the efforts of cleaning staff, James could see fine particles of what appeared to be sawdust and plaster dust that had been missed during regular cleaning. The particles formed a faint trail leading from the wardrobe doors toward a window that faced the palace gardens. As James drew closer to the wardrobe, he could hear a faint humming sound, almost like the quiet operation of electronic equipment. The sound was so subtle that it would be easily missed during normal daily activities. But in the complete silence of the empty quarters, it was unmistakable. The wardrobe doors themselves appeared normal from the outside, but James noticed that the ornate brass handles showed signs of recent frequent use. The metal was more polished than usual, suggesting they had been opened and closed many times in recent weeks. There were also small scratches around the lock mechanism that indicated it had been removed and reinstalled multiple times. James placed his ear against the wardrobe door and listened intently. The humming sound was definitely coming from within, accompanied by what sounded like the quiet whir of cooling fans. This was definitely not normal for a clothing storage area. Whatever was inside required electrical power and ventilation. Taking a deep breath, James grasped the handles and slowly opened the wardrobe doors. What he saw inside made him step back in complete shock. The interior of the wardrobe had been completely transformed. Where there should have been rows of elegant gowns, formal wear, and accessories, there was instead a sophisticated electronic setup that looked more like a high-tech communications center than a royal clothing storage area. Multiple computer monitors were mounted on the walls, displaying what appeared to be streaming data and communication interfaces. Banks of servers hummed quietly in custom-built cabinets that had been cleverly disguised to match the wardrobe's original woodwork. Cables and wires were meticulously organized and hidden, creating a professional installation that had clearly been planned and executed by experts. James felt his legs grow weak as he tried to process what he was seeing. This was not a simple redecoration project or even an unauthorized renovation. This was a complete communications facility hidden within the royal quarters, operating without the knowledge or approval of palace security or the official royal household. As his initial shock began to subside, James forced himself to look more carefully at the equipment. The monitors displayed various screens that he didn't immediately recognize, but some showed what appeared to be encrypted communication channels, data transfer protocols, and connection status indicators for international networks. One particular monitor caught his attention because it displayed a map of the world with pulsing dots indicating active connections to locations across multiple continents. The scope of whatever operation was being conducted from this hidden facility was clearly international in nature. James realized that he was looking at evidence of activities that could potentially compromise national security, royal safety, or both. The implications were staggering. How long had this facility been operational? What kind of communications were being conducted? Who else was involved in its creation and operation? His hands trembling slightly, James reached for his secure communication device to contact his superior officer. This discovery was far beyond anything he could handle alone, and immediate action would be required to assess the full scope of the situation. However, before he could make the call, he heard the sound of footsteps in the corridor outside. Someone was approaching the royal quarters unexpectedly. James quickly but quietly closed the wardrobe doors and moved toward the bedroom window, where he could observe the corridor through a reflection in the glass. His blood ran cold when he saw who was approaching. It wasn't Camilla returning early from her engagement. Instead, it was someone he had never seen before in the palace, a man in an expensive suit carrying what appeared to be a briefcase and moving with the confidence of someone who belonged there. The stranger was heading directly toward Camilla's quarters, and James realized he was about to be caught in the middle of something far more dangerous and complex than he had ever imagined. James quickly moved away from the window and positioned himself behind the bedroom door, his mind racing as he tried to determine the best course of action. His security training had prepared him for many scenarios, but being caught inside royal quarters while investigating unauthorized equipment by an unknown individual was not covered in any manual. The footsteps grew closer, and James could hear the distinctive sound of a key being inserted into the lock of the outer door. This stranger had authorized access to Camilla's private quarters, which meant he was either working with her directly or had somehow obtained legitimate credentials. Either possibility raised serious questions about the scope of whatever operation was taking place. James pressed himself against the wall and controlled his breathing as he heard the outer door open and close. The stranger moved through the sitting room with obvious familiarity, heading directly toward the bedroom area where James was hiding. Through the crack in the door, James caught his first clear glimpse of the intruder. The man appeared to be in his 40s, with silver-streaked dark hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. His expensive suit was impeccably tailored, and he carried himself with the bearing of someone accustomed to authority and high-stakes situations. Most concerning to James was the fact that the stranger moved through the royal quarters with complete confidence, as if he had been there many times before. The man walked directly to the wardrobe and opened the doors without hesitation. The soft glow from the hidden monitors illuminated his face as he began interacting with the equipment. James could hear the quiet clicking of keyboards and the soft beeps of electronic interfaces being activated. From his hiding position, James strained to hear any conversation, but the stranger appeared to be working alone. However, after several minutes, James heard him speaking in a low voice. It took a moment to realize that the man was conducting a video conference call with someone through the hidden communication system. "The timeline has been moved up," the stranger said in a crisp accent that James couldn't immediately identify. "Our source confirms that the security review is scheduled for next week, which means we need to complete the transfer of all sensitive data before then." James felt his heart skip a beat. The man was discussing a security review, which likely referred to the routine security assessments that were conducted throughout the palace. If this hidden facility was discovered during an official review, it would create an international incident of unprecedented proportions. The stranger continued his conversation. "Yes, I understand the risks, but we're too close to completion to abort now. The intelligence we've gathered over the past 6 months is invaluable, and we can't afford to lose it due to premature discovery." The word intelligence sent chills down James's spine. This wasn't just unauthorized equipment. It was an active intelligence operation being conducted from within the heart of the British royal household. The implications for national security were staggering. "The primary asset remains unaware of the full scope of our activities," the stranger continued. "She believes she's participating in a legitimate communication enhancement project for international diplomatic purposes. Her cooperation has been essential, but her knowledge is limited to only what she needs to know." James realized with growing horror that the primary asset could only refer to Camilla herself. She was apparently involved in this operation, but according to the stranger, she didn't understand its true nature. This revelation raised even more troubling questions about how the operation had been initiated and who was ultimately controlling it. The conversation continued for several more minutes, with the stranger providing updates on data collection progress, security protocols, and extraction procedures. James tried to memorize every detail, knowing that this information would be crucial for whatever investigation would follow his discovery. Finally, the stranger ended his call and began shutting down various systems within the hidden facility. James realized that this might be his only opportunity to escape from the quarters without being detected. He waited until he heard the wardrobe doors closing, then carefully moved toward the bedroom window that faced the palace gardens. The window opened onto a narrow ledge that connected to a maintenance walkway used by palace staff for cleaning the exterior windows. James had used this route before during security drills, though never under such dangerous circumstances. He carefully opened the window and stepped onto the ledge, grateful for his years of physical training that had maintained his balance and coordination. As he made his way along the ledge toward the maintenance access point, James could see the stranger through the bedroom window, gathering his briefcase and preparing to leave. The man checked his watch and made one final inspection of the room to ensure everything appeared normal before heading toward the door. James reached the maintenance access point and quickly made his way down to the ground level through a service stairway that was hidden behind decorative stonework. Once he was safely on solid ground, he took out his secure communication device and contacted his immediate supervisor, Deputy Security Chief Margaret Thompson. Deputy Chief Thompson, this is Mitchell. I need to request an immediate emergency meeting regarding a critical security situation. I cannot discuss details over any communication channel. We need to meet in person within the hour. The urgency in his voice must have been clear because Thompson responded immediately. Understood, Mitchell. Meet me in Conference Room Alpha in the security wing. I'll ensure complete privacy. As James made his way toward the security wing, his mind was overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he had discovered. A sophisticated intelligence operation was being conducted from within the royal quarters, with the apparent involvement of a member of the royal family, who might not fully understand what she was participating in. The stranger's references to data collection, extraction procedures, and security reviews suggested that this operation had been ongoing for months and was approaching some kind of critical phase. The international scope of the communications he had witnessed indicated that this was not a domestic matter but something with potentially global implications. James knew that his discovery would trigger a massive investigation involving multiple security agencies, and the political ramifications could be devastating for the royal family and the British government. As he approached the security wing, he steeled himself for what would undoubtedly be the most challenging and consequential briefing of his career. Deputy Security Chief Margaret Thompson was already waiting in Conference Room Alpha when James arrived. Her stern expression and the presence of 2 additional senior security officials indicated that his urgent request had been taken seriously. Thompson gestured for James to take a seat across from her at the polished mahogany table that had witnessed countless security briefings over the years. Mitchell, your message suggested an immediate security threat, Thompson began, her voice measured but tense. Before you begin, I need to inform you that whatever you're about to share will be recorded and may be subject to investigation by multiple agencies. Are you prepared to proceed? James nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. Deputy, Chief, what I'm about to report involves a potential intelligence operation being conducted from within the royal quarters. I have personally observed evidence that suggests ongoing unauthorized activities that could compromise national security. Thompson leaned forward, her expression growing more serious. Explain exactly what you observed and provide specific details about times, locations, and any individuals involved. James began his detailed account, starting with Mrs. Hartwell's initial concerns and proceeding through his discovery of the hidden communication facility within Camillas' wardrobe. He described the sophisticated equipment, the international connections displayed on the monitors, and most critically, the conversation he had overheard between the unknown stranger and his contacts. When James finished his report, the room fell silent for several long moments. Thompson exchanged glances with the other officials before speaking. Mitchell, the implications of what you're describing are extraordinary. Are you absolutely certain about what you observed? Yes, ma'am. I can provide detailed descriptions of the equipment, the layout of the hidden facility, and the specific statements made during the conversation I overheard. I also noted the approximate times of all events for verification purposes. Thompson activated her secure communication device and spoke in code to someone at a higher level of the security hierarchy. Within minutes, she received confirmation that an emergency security assessment team would be assembled immediately. Mitchell, you're about to become involved in one of the most sensitive investigations in recent royal history, Thompson informed him. I need you to understand that everything related to this matter is now classified at the highest levels. You will not discuss any aspect of what you've discovered with anyone outside of the authorized investigation team. One of the other officials, whom James recognized as Chief Intelligence Liaison Robert Sterling, stepped forward. Guard Mitchell, based on your observations, we believe this operation may be connected to intelligence activities that our agencies have been monitoring through other channels. Your discovery may have provided the missing piece of a much larger puzzle. Sterling explained that intelligence services had detected unusual communication patterns originating from somewhere within London's government district over the past several months. The signals were sophisticated and encrypted, making it difficult to determine their exact source or purpose. However, the timing and characteristics of these communications matched what James had observed in the hidden facility. What you've uncovered appears to be a significant intelligence gathering operation, Sterling continued. The international connections you observed suggest that sensitive information about British government activities, royal family communications, and possibly state secrets may have been compromised. Thompson outlined the immediate action plan. A specialized technical team would conduct a covert examination of the hidden facility to document all equipment and analyze any data that could be recovered. Meanwhile, surveillance would be established to monitor all individuals with access to Camillas' quarters, including the mysterious stranger James had encountered. The most delicate aspect of this investigation, Thompson explained, is determining the extent of Her Majesty's involvement and whether she is a willing participant or an unwitting victim of this operation. Based on the conversation you overheard, it appears she may have been manipulated into cooperating without understanding the true nature of what was taking place. James felt a mixture of relief and concern. Relief that his superiors were taking the situation seriously and had the resources to conduct a proper investigation, but concern about the potential consequences for everyone involved, including Camilla herself. Sterling provided additional context that made the situation even more troubling. Our preliminary analysis suggests that this operation has been planned and executed by a highly sophisticated organization with significant resources and expertise. The level of technical sophistication and the ability to gain access to royal quarters indicates involvement by either a foreign intelligence service or a well-funded private organization with government connections. The investigation team decided that James would continue his normal duties while maintaining discreet observation of Camillas' quarters and reporting any unusual activities. He would also be equipped with enhanced surveillance equipment to document any future encounters with the mysterious stranger or other unknown individuals. Mitchell, your discovery may have prevented a significant intelligence breach that could have had serious consequences for national security, Thompson concluded. However, we're now in a race against time to understand the full scope of this operation before those responsible realize they've been discovered. As the meeting concluded, James was briefed on the communication protocols he would use to report any new developments. He was also informed that a cover story had been prepared to explain any unusual security activities that palace staff might observe during the investigation. Walking back to his regular duties, James felt the weight of responsibility that came with being at the center of such a significant security investigation. He knew that the next few days would determine whether the investigation could uncover the truth before those responsible had the opportunity to destroy evidence or escape. The palace around him appeared normal on the surface, with staff going about their daily routines and preparations being made for upcoming royal engagements. However, James now saw everything through the lens of potential security threats and hidden dangers. Every unfamiliar face, every unusual sound, every deviation from normal routines took on new significance. As evening approached, James positioned himself where he could observe the approach to Camillas' quarters without being detected. He knew that the investigation was just beginning, and the most dangerous phase might be yet to come. 3 days after James's initial report, the investigation had expanded beyond anything he could have imagined. The specialized technical team had confirmed his observations and discovered that the hidden facility was even more sophisticated than initially apparent. The equipment included advanced encryption devices, satellite communication links, and data storage systems capable of handling massive amounts of sensitive information. James received an urgent summons to another emergency briefing, this time in a secure facility outside the palace grounds. When he arrived, he found a room filled with representatives from multiple intelligence agencies, including officials he recognized as being from the highest levels of British security services. Deputy Chief Thompson introduced him to the lead investigator, Director Sarah Blackwood from the Security Service. Director Blackwood was a formidable woman in her 50s with silver hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed to analyze everything they saw. Her reputation within the intelligence community was legendary, and her presence indicated the extraordinary importance of the investigation. "Guard Mitchell," Director Blackwood began, "your discovery has uncovered what we now believe to be one of the most significant intelligence operations targeting the British government in decades. The preliminary analysis of the equipment suggests that classified information has been systematically collected and transmitted to foreign entities for at least 6 months." James felt a chill as the director continued her briefing. The investigation had revealed that the hidden facility was connected to a network of similar operations across multiple government buildings in London. The royal quarters had been chosen as a central hub because of the access it provided to high-level government communications and the difficulty of detecting surveillance within such a historically secure location. "We've identified the individual you encountered as Dr. Viktor Petrov, a former Russian intelligence officer who has been operating under diplomatic cover for the past 2 years," Director Blackwood explained. "He has been posing as a technology consultant specializing in secure communications for government agencies." The revelation that a foreign intelligence operative had gained such extensive access to royal quarters was shocking enough, but Director Blackwood's next disclosure was even more disturbing. "Our investigation has determined that Dr. Petrov approached Her Majesty approximately 8 months ago with a proposal to upgrade the palace communication systems for enhanced international diplomatic capabilities. He presented himself as representing a legitimate technology firm with government contracts." James began to understand how Camilla had been manipulated into cooperating with the operation. She believed she was participating in an authorized upgrade to improve diplomatic communications. He asked. "Exactly," Director Blackwood confirmed. Dr. Petrov provided convincing documentation, including what appeared to be official government authorizations and testimonials from other agencies. Her Majesty's desire to contribute to diplomatic efficiency made her an ideal target for this type of deception. The director explained that Camilla had been gradually drawn deeper into the operation through a series of seemingly innocent requests. Initially, she was asked to allow the installation of upgraded communication equipment in her quarters. Later, she was requested to participate in test communications with various international contacts to verify the system's capabilities. What Her Majesty didn't realize, Director Blackwood continued, was that every communication she made through the system was being recorded and analyzed. Additionally, the equipment was designed to intercept and record other sensitive communications throughout the palace, including conversations and electronic communications involving other members of the royal family and government officials. The scope of the intelligence breach was staggering. The investigation had revealed that classified information about government policies, diplomatic strategies, royal family activities, and security procedures had been systematically collected and transmitted to foreign intelligence services. James asked the question that had been troubling him since his discovery. What will happen to Her Majesty? Will she face consequences for her involvement? Director Blackwood's expression softened slightly. Her Majesty is considered a victim of a sophisticated deception operation, rather than a willing participant in espionage activities. However, the political and security implications of this situation are extraordinarily complex. The director outlined the challenges facing the investigation team. The operation had been so well planned and executed that gathering sufficient evidence for prosecutions would be difficult. Dr. Petrov had diplomatic immunity, which complicated any potential legal action. Most critically, the public revelation of the intelligence breach could cause irreparable damage to the royal family's reputation and Britain's international relationships. Our primary objectives now are to neutralize the remaining threats, secure all compromised information, and prevent any additional intelligence breaches, Director Blackwood explained. We also need to determine whether other members of the royal family or government officials have been similarly targeted. James learned that the investigation had identified at least 3 other government buildings where similar hidden facilities had been installed. The operation appeared to be part of a comprehensive intelligence gathering campaign targeting multiple levels of the British government. Your role in this investigation is far from over. Guard Mitchell, Director Blackwood informed him. We need you to maintain your normal duties while serving as our primary observer within the palace. We're planning a coordinated operation to apprehend Dr. Petrov and his associates while simultaneously securing all compromised equipment, the director explained. That the operation would require precise timing to prevent the destruction of evidence and to ensure that all individuals involved in the conspiracy could be identified and apprehended. James would play a crucial role in monitoring activities within the palace and providing real-time intelligence to the operation team. There's one more critical element, Director Blackwood added. We believe Dr. Petrov is planning to extract all remaining intelligence data and terminate the operation within the next 48 hours. Our signals intelligence suggests that he's received instructions to complete his mission and prepare for departure from the country. James felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that came with high-stakes operations. The next 2 days would determine whether months of intelligence gathering by foreign operatives could be stopped before irreparable damage was done to British national security. As the briefing concluded, James was equipped with advanced surveillance equipment and provided with detailed instructions for the coordinated operation that would begin the following morning. He knew that everything he had trained for throughout his career had prepared him for the challenges ahead. The morning of the operation dawned gray and misty, with heavy clouds hanging low over London. James arrived at the palace earlier than usual, knowing that this day would likely determine the success or failure of one of the most significant counterintelligence operations in recent British history. Director Blackwood had established a command center in a secure location near the palace, coordinating teams positioned at multiple government buildings where similar intelligence operations had been identified. James maintained contact with the command center through a nearly invisible communication device that allowed him to receive instructions and provide real-time updates. At precisely 9 o'clock in the morning, surveillance teams reported that Dr. Petrov had arrived at the palace using his established cover as a technology consultant. He was carrying the same briefcase James had observed during his initial encounter, but this time the intelligence teams knew it likely contained equipment for extracting and destroying the evidence of months of espionage activities. James positioned himself where he could observe the corridor leading to Camillas' quarters without being detected. Through his communication device, he could hear updates from teams monitoring the other compromised locations throughout London. The coordination required for the simultaneous operation was extraordinary, involving dozens of intelligence officers and technical specialists. Target has entered the primary location, James whispered into his communication device as he watched Dr. Petrov disappear into Camillas' quarters, beginning to monitor extraction activities. Within the hidden facility, Dr. Petrov worked methodically to download the final batches of collected intelligence data. Unknown to him, the technical teams had already gained access to the communication networks and were monitoring every byte of data being transferred. The intelligence services wanted to identify not only what information had been compromised, but also where it was being sent and who was receiving it. After 30 minutes, James reported unusual activity. Command: Target appears to be dismantling equipment within the facility. This may be the beginning of the destruction phase. Director Blackwood's voice came through clearly. All teams, initiate Phase 2. We cannot allow the destruction of evidence to proceed. James watched as Dr. Petrov emerged from Camillas' quarters carrying what appeared to be several hard drives and data storage devices. Instead of leaving immediately, however, the Russian operative made an unexpected move. He headed toward a different section of the palace, one that housed additional royal family quarters. "Command, target is deviating from expected extraction route," James reported urgently. "He's heading toward the prince's residential wing." This was not anticipated in our operational planning. The intelligence teams quickly realized that Dr. Petrov's operation might be even more extensive than they had discovered. If he had gained access to other royal quarters, the scope of the intelligence breach could be far greater than initially assessed. James followed at a safe distance as Dr. Petrov made his way through corridors that required increasingly high levels of security clearance. The fact that he moved without hesitation suggested he had legitimate access credentials for these areas, which raised troubling questions about how extensively the Russian operation had penetrated palace security. Dr. Petrov stopped outside a service entrance that led to the palace's central communication hub, where all external communications for the royal family were processed and secured. James realized with growing alarm that the Russian operative might have had access to the most sensitive communication systems in the entire palace. "Command, target has accessed the central communication facility," James reported. "Repeat, he has gained entry to the primary communication hub. The security implications are extraordinary." Director Blackwood's response was immediate. "All teams execute emergency apprehension protocols. We cannot allow the target to complete whatever operation he's conducting in the communication center." James received instructions to maintain surveillance while armed response teams moved into position. However, before the teams could reach the communication center, Dr. Petrov emerged carrying additional storage devices and what appeared to be communication equipment. The Russian operative's next move caught everyone by surprise. Instead of attempting to leave the palace, he headed toward the administrative wing, where senior palace staff had their offices. James realized that Dr. Petrov might be attempting to access personnel files or other administrative records that could compromise the identities of everyone involved in royal security. "Target is accessing administrative areas," James reported. "He appears to be conducting multiple extraction operations throughout the palace." The intelligence teams had to make a critical decision. They could apprehend Dr. Petrov immediately and prevent any further intelligence gathering, but this might alert other operatives and prevent the discovery of the full scope of the espionage network. Alternatively, they could continue surveillance and risk allowing additional sensitive information to be compromised. Director Blackwood made the call. "Initiate immediate apprehension. The risk of additional compromise is too great." James watched as armed response teams converged on the administrative wing from multiple directions. Dr. Petrov, apparently sensing that his operation had been discovered, abandoned his careful, methodical approach and began moving rapidly toward what James recognized as an emergency exit route used by palace staff during security drills. "Target is attempting emergency extraction," James reported. "He's heading for the service exit near the kitchen complex." The chase that followed took place in the normally quiet corridors of the palace, as armed intelligence officers pursued a foreign operative who had been systematically stealing British state secrets for months. Palace staff were quickly moved to secure areas as the operation unfolded around them. Dr. Petrov was finally cornered in a service corridor near the palace kitchens. When apprehended, he was carrying multiple storage devices containing what would later be confirmed as some of the most sensitive intelligence ever stolen from the British government. However, even as Dr. Petrov was taken into custody, Director Blackwood knew that the investigation was far from over. The Russian operative's ability to move freely throughout the palace suggested that the espionage network included additional individuals who had not yet been identified. James received new instructions to maintain heightened surveillance throughout the palace while the investigation team analyzed the recovered evidence and attempted to determine the full extent of the intelligence breach. The operation had been successful in stopping the immediate threat, but the long-term consequences of months of espionage activities were yet to be fully understood. 3 weeks after Dr. Petrov's apprehension, the full scope of the intelligence operation had been revealed through extensive analysis of recovered data and testimony from captured operatives. James found himself once again in Director Blackwood's secure briefing room, but this time the atmosphere was markedly different from the urgent tension of the operational phase. "Guard Mitchell," Director Blackwood began, "the investigation you initiated has uncovered one of the most sophisticated and extensive espionage operations ever conducted against the British government. The intelligence gathered by Dr. Petrov and his network compromised classified information across multiple government departments, royal communications, and diplomatic activities." The director explained that the recovered data revealed systematic intelligence gathering that had been ongoing for nearly a year before James's discovery. The operation had targeted not only the royal family, but also senior government officials, military personnel, and diplomatic staff. The hidden facility in Camillas' wardrobe had served as the central hub for coordinating intelligence collection from dozens of other sources throughout London. James learned that Dr. Petrov's network included at least 12 other operatives working under various covers throughout the government district. Some posed as technology consultants, others as administrative staff, and several had gained positions within security firms contracted to provide services to government buildings. The sophistication of this operation suggests it was planned and funded at the highest levels of a foreign intelligence service, Director Blackwood continued. However, the political implications of publicly acknowledging the extent of the breach would be devastating for Britain's international relationships and national security credibility. The government had made the difficult decision to handle the matter through diplomatic channels rather than public prosecution. Dr. Petrov and several other operatives had been quietly expelled from the country in exchange for assurances that the stolen intelligence would not be used against British interests. Additional operatives who were British citizens would face prosecution through the security court system, away from public scrutiny. Director Blackwood turned to the most sensitive aspect of the investigation. "Her Majesty the Queen Consort has been fully briefed on the true nature of the operation and her unwitting involvement. She has expressed profound remorse for the security breach and has cooperated fully with all aspects of the investigation." James felt relief knowing that Camilla would not face consequences for her manipulation by the foreign operatives. However, the director explained that significant changes would be implemented throughout the royal household to prevent similar operations in the future. The security protocols for all royal quarters have been completely revised, Director Blackwood explained. No external technology installations will be permitted without verification through multiple independent security agencies. Additionally, all royal family members will receive enhanced briefings on identifying and reporting potential intelligence gathering attempts. The investigation had also revealed weaknesses in the broader government security infrastructure that allowed the espionage network to operate undetected for so long. Comprehensive reviews were being conducted across all government departments to identify and address these vulnerabilities. James asked about the long-term implications of the intelligence breach. Director Blackwood's response was sobering. Some of the compromised information will require changes to diplomatic strategies, security procedures, and operational protocols. The damage assessment is ongoing, but we believe we've identified and contained the most critical exposures. The director then addressed James's future role. "Your actions in discovering and reporting this operation have prevented what could have been a catastrophic intelligence disaster. The government recognizes your service with a commendation that will remain classified but will be reflected in your permanent record and career advancement." James was being promoted to Chief Security Officer for the royal household, with responsibilities for implementing the new security protocols and overseeing the enhanced protection measures. His experience with the investigation made him uniquely qualified to identify and prevent similar threats in the future. However, Director Blackwood continued, "Your knowledge of this operation makes you a permanent target for foreign intelligence services. You'll receive ongoing security briefings and protection measures appropriate to your new role and the sensitive information you possess." As the briefing concluded, James reflected on how dramatically his life had changed since that morning when Mrs. Hartwell had approached him with her concerns about unusual activities in Camilla's quarters. His decision to investigate those concerns had led to the Discovery of an espionage operation that could have compromised British national security for years to come. Director Blackwood's final words stayed with him as he returned to the palace. Guard Mitchell, your vigilance and courage have protected not only the royal family but the security of the entire nation. The threat of espionage is constant and evolving, but dedicated professionals like yourself are our best defense against those who would compromise our security. Walking through the familiar corridors of the palace, James saw his surroundings with new eyes. The elegant rooms and historic hallways that had once seemed secure and timeless now represented a constant challenge requiring vigilance and protection. Every visitor, every new staff member, every technological upgrade would be viewed through the lens of potential security threats. The palace had weathered this crisis without public knowledge of how close it had come to a catastrophic security breach. Life continued with its ceremonial functions and public duties, but beneath the surface, the enhanced security measures and heightened awareness served as constant reminders of the hidden dangers that could threaten even the most secure institutions. Mrs. Hartwell, who had initiated the chain of events with her observations, received a quiet commendation and continued her duties with the satisfaction of knowing her vigilance had contributed to protecting the royal family. The other palace staff remained unaware of how their workplace had been the center of an international espionage operation. James settled into his new responsibilities as chief security officer, knowing that his discovery of the hidden facility in Camilla's wardrobe had changed not only his own career, but had helped protect the security of the nation itself. The experience had taught him that the greatest threats often came from the most unexpected places, and that constant vigilance was the price of maintaining security in an increasingly complex and dangerous world.